Hello, and a warm welcome to our show, Love Athletics. In this program, we bring you the latest highlights from our sport with expert input from different continental areas. And we're delighted to have with us today Ghanaian journalist Fentuo Tahiru. Hello, Fentuo. Lovely to see you, and a big thank you for joining us.
Hello, and it's a big pleasure to join you and to finally be on the program, Anna. It's a real pleasure to be on the program. Thank you for having me.
That's great. So, before we focus on the athletics news of the last fortnight, focusing mainly on road races, but also some great performances by underage athletes, let's start by learning more about our guest. So, Fentuo, I always like to know how and when our journalists caught the athletics bug. So, tell us, what motivated you to start a career as a sports journalist and get involved in athletics?
Thank you, Anna. As is the case with most African journalists, to be honest, especially from West Africa, I also started off being a football journalist before gradually gravitating towards athletics. I've always loved track, but there is no sport specific kind of journalism being practiced in our part of the world. Media companies are very stingy, so they wouldn't hire any sport specific journalist. They just hire one and you have to do everything. And so, as every young journalist had to learn to cover everything, and that was how I also began. But along the line, while I covered the local track meets and interview athletes, I got to appreciate their stories, their journeys, and I was very fascinated and always kept going back to cover a lot more local meets. But I think what made me fully convinced that athletics was my sport was in 2018 when World Athletics invited me over for the media development program on the side of the African Senior Athletics Championships, and you, Anna, had a lot to do with that. You were there. You were the one that sent out that invitation, and meeting all those other journalists and athletes from around the continent was very inspiring. And I was eager to put that training that we got from that program into use as well. So, in a way, Anna, I have you to thank for where I am today. And if I haven't said it before, I will say it now. So thank you. And thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you. That's really cool. It was a good group there in Nigeria. So I enjoyed it. Lively discussions. And yeah, you guys were really into it.
Absolutely. We had a lot of fun. And, Kofi was one of our instructors back then. So it
Yeah.
was really sad to hear he passed away a couple of years ago, Talu's coach. But it
Yes,
sounds like just yesterday, but it was a lifetime ago as well, wasn't it?
absolutely. Yeah. Mm-mm. And Fencho, were there any athletes in particular who inspired you?
Oh yes, definitely. Growing up, I watched two Ghanaian athletes in the 90s and early 2000s who had a huge impact on me. Aziz Zachary was the longest time. For the longest time, he was Ghana's flag bearer in mid-meet athletics meets, and I always watched him growing up. My most vivid memory of him was in the Athens Olympics in 2004. He made the final, the one that Justin Gatlin won. And then there is Vida Enim, another 100-meter sprinter who started out a high school star and went all the way to the top, winning so many medals for Ghana. She's a multiple African champion, a multiple African Games champion. She got triple gold at the African Championships in Mauritius in 2006. And I remember the excitement back then. It was unbelievable. So these two definitely had a lot they had a huge role to play in getting me interested in athletics.
And what were your favorite athletics moments in the course of your career?
Whew, I don't know. It has to be my first World Championships. That was in 2019 in Doha, and two events stand out from there. One was the world record that Delilah Muhammad ran in the women's 400-meter hurdles. And if you remember quite clearly, with a young Sydney McLaughlin right behind her,
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways that was the peak of Delilah and the last time she beat Sydney in a race. I don't think she gets enough credit, to be honest, but I think the women's 400-meter hurdles is what it is today, largely because of Delilah. And I don't even think that Sydney would have been as good as she is now if she didn't emerge at the time that she did to forge that rivalry with Delilah. So that's definitely number one. Then two would be Sawa Ignace's win in the women's 400 meters, the youngest to ever win the title. And she ran the third fastest time of all time in the women's 400 meters. It was incredible to see. That, of course, also remains a favorite moment for me. And finally, my third favorite moment is also from 2019 when President Fries won the 100 meters after coming back from childbirth and then went to pick her baby out from the crowd to celebrate with her. It was special and a great moment of inspiration for many female athletes about the strength that childbirth can provide a parent. And I remember standing right in the stands near the Jamaican fans when she stretched out her arms to call and said, "My baby." And it was so beautiful to see. And the kid had no idea what was going on. He was crying all over the place. But it was amazing. And so that was very special. And finally, Faith Kipyegon, dear, 2023. What a special year it was for her, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think any athlete would ever have a better year than Kipyegon did in 2023 with 3 world records in 3 different events. So that was special too. Then there was Duplantis in Paris. My word. Special moment seeing him scale that bar with his last attempt for a new world record and the gold medal. That was very special too. And I remember every event stopped. I mean, I was with you, Anna, and then he was the only one competing. And with his last jump, the whole stadium was backing him, and he did it. It was rockiest to see. Then there's, of course, Bogo in the podium in the men's 200 meters. I think this is probably one of the biggest upsets in the history of track, even if a lot of people don't like to say it. It was special. What he did was not just for him, but for the whole continent. And I have to say that even for he himself, with the kind of year he had, with the individual and personal tragedy of losing his mom, to come back and do what he did and upset one of the greatest, if not the greatest 200-meter runners of all time, and win that gold medal in that event, that was special. And I was happy to have witnessed that, Anna.
Well, that was amazing. And then, of course, he had a fantastic post-Olympic season. He was very, very dominant, apart from the Grand Prix final, but every other event, he was really good, not only winning, but with very fast times.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Fentuo. So we'll come back later to learn more about our guest. But let's look now at what's been happening in our sport over the last fortnight, starting with road races. So back on 12 January, Valencia Ibercaja 10 kilometers race saw an excellent results in both the men's and women's races, confirming Valencia's well-deserved name of Ciudad del Running, City of Running. The women's race was especially good, as the first 4 finishers all ran under 30 minutes and moved into the top 10 of all time. They were led home by Kenya's Helen Ekale Lobun, who, after dropping her opponents with 600 meters to go, finished her first 10K race in 29:30 and moved to number 4 in the all-time list. Behind her were 3 Ethiopians. Runner-up Girmawit Gebresahir in 29:34 improved her previous best by over 1 minute, closing ahead of pre-race favorite Foyten Tesfaye, 29:42. Just behind was Ayaze Chayichu in 29:43. And the 3 moved respectively to number 6, number 8, and equal number 9 of all time. The men's race was not quite as fast, but produced 2 area records. Sweden's Andreas Almgren, who was forced to cut short his summer season and miss the Olympic Games due to a stress reaction in his shin, had a great start to 2025, taking advantage of his superior finishing kick to win the race in 26:53, breaking the European record. It was an improvement of 11 seconds over the previous continental best, which had been set just last November, and the first time a European athlete broke 27 minutes. And that barrier was also smashed by second-placed Dominic Lokignomolobalu, the former refugee team member now competing for Switzerland, who finished just 1 second behind in 26:54. Kenya's Vincent Kibet Langat completed the podium in 26:55. Further behind, in 8th place, Uruguay's Santiago Catrofe destroyed the South American record with 27:16, a huge improvement of 35 seconds on a mark which had lasted since August 1990. And the men's race also saw a host of national records. In all, there were 13. Sweden, Switzerland, Belgium, Uruguay, Eritrea, Great Britain, Spain, Ireland, Netherlands, Denmark, Finland, Lithuania, and China. Fantastic race. On the same day, 12 January, Dubai Marathon was held and saw not only podium sweeps for Ethiopian athletes in both races, but a total of 8 total Ethiopian dominance, with the top 16 women and the top 14 men, all hailing from the East African country. Among the women, Bedatu Hirpa, the 2015 World Under-18 1500 meter champion, who ran her first marathons just 2 years later, took 2 minutes 40 off her previous PB to win the race in 2:18:27, ahead of her training partner, 2023 winner Dera Dida, 2:18:32, who had been in the lead before suffering stomach cramps and fading in the final 5K. Their compatriot, Tigist Girma, was a distance third in 2:20:47. In the men's race, 23-year-old Butegemechu, a debutant at the distance, who ran his first recorded international race in November 2023, took off 35 at 35K to achieve a decisive win in 2 hours 04:51, 23 seconds ahead of Berehanu Tsegu, and while Shifa Tamro completed the podium in 2:05:28. A week later in Houston, marathon and half marathon, there were interesting results, especially in the half marathon, in spite of the wind and near freezing temperatures. The men's race was especially thrilling, with Ethiopia's 20-year-old Adisu Gobena just edging Olympic marathon 8th placed Connor Mans of the US, with both clocking 59:17. Tanzania's Gabriel Gerald Gai was just 1 second behind, and Ethiopia's Jamal Mekonnen also very close in 59:20. In spite of being assigned second place in the photo finish, it was a great day for Mans, as he slashed 26 seconds off the previous area and continental record, which had been set back in 2007 by Ryan Hall. The women's race was also hotly contested, and also a clash between Ethiopian youth and an experienced American, as Ethiopia's Senayet Getachew, still only 19, and the USA's Waini Kelati were left alone to battle it out. Senayet Getachew finally prevailed in 1:06:05 to clinch her first ever road race victory, 4 seconds ahead of Kelati and 39 seconds ahead of third-placed compatriot Buze Diriba. Waini Kelati's runner-up spot also came with the American and NACAC record, her 106.09, improving her own mark of 106.25, which she had set in the same race last year. Full marathons were not as exciting, with the wins for Ethiopia's Kumeshi Sichala in 2 hours 20:42 among the women, and Israel's Haimro Alame in 2:08:17. And finally, on 26 January, the Osaka Women's Marathon was held in Japan. Ethiopia's Vorknesh Edesa, the 2024 winner, defended her title, clocking 2:21:00 ahead of Kana Kobayashi, 2:21:19, and Yuka Suzuki, 2:21:33, who both achieved the qualifying standard for the World Championships in Tokyo in September. Now, Fentuo, I know Ghana is mostly focused on sprints, but tell us, what athletes impressed you the most in road races last year?
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, you're right. We're very sprint by ours, but two races really impressed me last year. And both of them from the women. It fascinates me the kind of things that are happening in the women's races. So two athletes standing out. I think I have to talk about Kenya's Ruth Chepngetich from the Chicago Marathon. You know, becoming the first woman ever to break that 2:10 mark and breaking the world record the way she did in Chicago was absolutely ridiculous. Also becoming the first woman ever to win 3 titles from Chicago. And for me, one of the things that really stood out and why it was so special was the dedication and the celebration after, dedicating that through Calvin Kiptum, who had passed away earlier that year.
Yeah.
You know, also marathon world record holder. So for me, I think that was definitely a standout race for me. And then the other one has to be Sifan Hassan's marathon win in Paris. You know, Sifan Hassan is one of those athletes that fascinates me. She just goes for whatever. It's almost like she sleeps and wakes up and says, "Today I'm gonna try that." And then she goes on and then she wins. You know, becoming the first ever woman to have titles in the 5,000, the 10,000, and the marathon at the Olympic Games. She's even, I don't know if you know this, Anne, she's even competed in the 800 meters at the Olympic Games. She's competed in the 1,005. She's done the 5,000, the 10,000, the marathon. It's ridiculous how good she is and how she continues to power beyond the imaginations of even her herself. So I think these two, for me, were very standout performances for me from last year in the road races.
Yeah, I would definitely agree because I mean, Sifan, as you said, her range is just unreal. And then she just invents these crazy challenges, which everybody says, nah, this is never going to work. And she does it. She's just amazing.
It is unbelievable. You know, it's
Yes.
unbelievable. It's almost like she does it on the whim. It's like, let me see, what am I trying today? Okay, shall we do high jump now?
Yeah, and I love her honesty. After the marathon, she was saying, I was really saying, why I didn't
Yeah,
mind
yeah, I
doing this.
remember that. She said, I don't know who sent me. This is stupid. I'm not going to do it again.
It was fantastic. She's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. Such a funny
Yeah,
moment. Yeah, definitely. But she's
yeah,
such a special athlete. Unbelievable.
yes, yeah. And Ruth Chepngetich, there were lots of people criticizing, but you mentioned her 3 victories in Chicago. And actually, all those 3 marks are in the top 10 of all time. So
You
nobody
got
can
it.
say that
There you
Ruth
go.
came out of nowhere,
Yeah,
and no, huge respect. Uh,
yeah.
uh, yeah,
Definitely, definitely. It was a very, very special race. So we'll see. I'm very much looking forward to what happens this year in the road races as well. You know,
yeah,
but I don't know if
definitely.
it was maybe a little disappointing that in the men's marathon in Paris, we didn't quite see the kind of rivalry. Everybody was looking forward to that Ethiopia versus Kenya rivalry. It didn't quite happen for us, did it?
No, no, it didn't. Exactly, because both Eliud and Kenenisa, I mean, Kenenisa had won in London
Yeah,
earlier in the year. So, you know, Eliud had a baddish race in Tokyo, but you said, okay, happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it was Tamra Tola he only knew like a few
I
weeks
know.
before that he would compete. So no, that was amazing.
It was indeed,
Yeah.
indeed, indeed.
So let's continue with out of stadium events and look at cross country. On 19 January, Gran Premio della Deputación de Cáceres was held. That's a World Continental Tour Gold. And it was a rather low-key edition of the event. The top 2 international athletes confirmed their status by taking top spots, with Uganda's Dan Kibet, the 2023 African Under-20 5,000 meter champion, completing the 9-kilometer course in 26:06, 24 seconds ahead of his nearest rival, Ethiopia's Samuel Fireo, still only 20, who had finished 6th over the steeplechase at the Olympics last summer. The women's race, also contested over 9K, was a closer affair, with Kazakhstan's Daisy Jepkemei prevailing over Uganda's Charity Cherop by just 1 second, 28:55 to 28:56. And a week later, in Belgium, the Cross Cup de Hanut was held. Now, that was all weekend where that was a cross-country tour gold event, but it was also a weekend when several top countries were holding their national championships, and the event was not quite as competitive as in the past. In the women's race, Kenya's Sheila Jebet won in 31:01, beating 18-year-old Yemenesh Shimket from Ethiopia 31:07. And Uganda's Rogers Kibet was even more dominant in the men's race, closing in 27:03. Both races were contested over 7 kilometers 92, and he was 20 seconds ahead of the runner-up, Burundi's Celestin Dikumana. Now let's move to stadium events. And the big event of the last fortnight was the start of the World Indoor Tour on 25 January in Astana, Kazakhstan. And the star of that meet was Ethiopia's Martha Alemayo, still only 16 years old, who destroyed the world under 18 best over 3,000 meters short track, clocking 8:39:80 to take over 6 seconds off the previous best, set in 2012 by her compatriot Gotitom Gobreselassie, a standout track runner in her teens, who then moved on to the marathon, winning Berlin in 2021 and the World Championships in Oregon the year later. The race saw a thrilling battle between Alemayo and her compatriot Shito Gumi, who is just 1 year older and who closed in 8:40:00. The pair moved to number 7 and number 8, respectively, in the under 20 all-time short track lists, a ranking that is totally dominated by Ethiopians who trust the top 18 spots. Unbelievable. Another interesting result from Kazakhstan was the very first indoor race by Olympic 100-meter silver medalist Kishane Thompson, who took the win in 6:56, grimacing as he closed the line and limping off the track. After a 32-hour journey, Thompson was understandably slower than the 6:48 he had run outdoor in his season opener in Kingston a week earlier. Now, the indoor season is only starting, but there were some really interesting results in stadium events over the last fortnight. So in addition to Alemayo, there were other interesting results among the underage athletes. We will look at most of them when we check out the top marks of 2025, but two deserve to be highlighted here. Also on 25 January, at the Dr. Sandler invitation in New York City, Australia's Cameron Myers broke another age category record in the under 20-mile short track, clocking 3:53.12, almost 2 seconds off the previous record set by the USA's German Fernandez back in 2009. Now, Myers had already set the world under 18 best over 1,500 meters outdoor in 2023, and his split in New York City over 1,500 meters was an area under 20 record, adding to a string of 3 other age category continental bests, which he set last year. And another excellent result had come earlier from super talented young sprinter, Italy's 15-year-old Kelly Douala, born in Italy to Cameroon-born parents. Kelly, whose full name is Kellyanne Maivan Douala Edimo, and whose idol is Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, had already attracted the attention of experts last year, and in 2025 she really burst onto the sprinting scene. On 12th January in Bergamo, she had clocked a 7:27 over 60 meters, bringing her then to equal number 8 in the under 18 all-time lists. Then on 18 January, she improved to 7:23, making her the number 3 under 18 athlete of all time. And she only turns 16 on 20 November. Now, Kelly, who trains with the boys as she's way too fast for the other girls, says her priority now is her finishing her studies. And as Italian Federation President Stefano May, who himself set a world best over 3,000 meters when he was 16, and then suffered from the excessive expectations, what is important is to let her grow, not to let the pressure affect her too much at such a young age, but let her just enjoy running and blossom gradually over time. Now, Fentuo, Ghanaian sprinters used to be among the very best in the world. Are there any young upcoming talents we should look out for?
Definitely, Anna. I think 2 athletes would stand out for me. Both of them are still in college in America. The first one would be Abdul Rashid Saminu. He competes for the University of South Florida. Last year, he became an first-team All-American in 2 events, in both the 100 meters and the 200 meters. In the 100 meters, he finished 5th in the final. In the 200 meters, he podiumed. 2012 was his 3rd place finish in time. He did qualify for the Olympic Games through the World Athletics ranking system of 100 meters, and he made the semi-final. So there was good progress there for him last year. The other one is James Darcy. He competes for the University of West Texas College, and he actually ran a world-leading time of 19.79 seconds in late 2023 and became the 3rd fastest time of all time on the African continent. But he suffered injury just around the time of the Budapest Championship. Actually, he suffered the injury in the heat of the Budapest World Championship, and he's not since been able to recover for that. He wasn't able to recover in time to even compete and try to qualify for the Olympic Games, so he was missing. But this season, he will be back, and there's quite a lot of people that are very expectant of what he could pull out, because that 19.79 seconds is also a national record, and it's an impressive feat that if he can get back to, Ghana would be very much happy about and excited about the prospects going forward as well.
Wow. All the best for him to come back healthy and having a great year.
Definitely.
Thank you, Fentuo. So it's time now to go back to the global overview of our sport and check out all the best results since our last show, starting with the senior men's events. And we'll continue to add in brackets marks which are regular, which are listed on the respected Tilastopaya website, but do not yet appear on the world list by World Athletics. Now, as the season is still young, we will slightly lower the cutoff from the usual 1,230 points result score to 1,220. So among the men, top performances came in a range of events, both indoor and outdoor. 60 meters, we already mentioned the 6:48 by Shane Thompson in, sorry, it wasn't Kingston, it was Spanish Town. But what's important to note is that he ran that into a 2.1 headwind. So congratulations for that. 200 meters short track. Leader is Sweden's Erik Erlandsson with 20:43. On the 400 meters, this mark is not yet in World Athletics, but it is on Tilastopaya. Remember Christopher Morales Williams, who had set what was a world record indoor, but then couldn't be ratified? Well, he ran 45:27, which is a great way to start his year. 800 meters, 600 meter short track, 1:14:92 by Belgium's Elliot Creston. 800 meters, Spain's Elvin Josué Canales clocked 1:44:65. Now, the best performance among the senior men came in the 1,000 meters. They're all short track by Josh Hoy in Philadelphia with 2:14:48. He moves to number 2 in the all-time short track lists. And a week later, Spain's Mariano Garcia clocked 2:16:25 in Antequera. 60-meter hurdles, Jakub Szymanski clocked 7:41 in Luxembourg. That's the equal second European of all time. And in the pole vault, Greek's Olympic bronze medalist Emmanuel Karalis, he jumped 5:85 in the All-Star Perche in Rouen, France. 10 kilometers road race, we already mentioned, Andreas Almgren, Dominic Lokignomolobalu, and Vincent Kibet Langat with very good performances. Now the marathon. World Athletics, as we saw last week, they have issued a new edition of the scoring tables. And while most events remain practically the same, there's huge change in the marathon. So we're including in brackets the points which they would have, a performance would have earned with the previous scoring tables and with the current scoring tables. So 2 hours 04:51 by Butegemechu would have been 1,247 points. Now it's only 1,225. And similarly for Berehano Tsegu and Shifera Tamro. So let's check now the best women's marks of the last 2 weeks. And all the best results among the women came from road races. So we have mentioned the 10K road race in Valencia. That was really amazing. Helen Ekale Lobun 29:30. That's worth a huge 1,275 points. And also very good depth with Girmawit Gebresair and Foyten Tesfai, and also Ayazech Achiyu, all having marks in the over 1,260. But also behind them, Fantane Belane and Christine Cesiro, 30:00 and 30:06, very, very good marks. Among in the marathon, we have mentioned Vedato Hirpa, 2 hours 18:27. Now that was in the old scoring tables worth 1,249. Now it's only 1,227. Dera Dida behind her. Uh, in the fourth place this year in Houston, Sichala Kumeshi, and then in fifth place of 2025, Tigist Girma from Dubai. So Fentuo, as we look at the best recent performances, it's a good time to take a look back at 2024. So tell us, what were your favorite athletics moment?
I know. Look, a lot of my favorite moments from last year were from African athletes, and it's just not my fault. It's just that the African athletes had an incredible year in 2024, beginning with Faith Kipyegon in the 1500 meters at the Paris Olympic Games, winning that event, becoming the first ever woman to do that. Faith Kipyegon, as I spoke about earlier, is one woman that continues to fascinate me. She's this global superstar. She's so humble. She's fun to chat with. She's a really good human being, and she's an incredible athlete. And to see her win, I know that she was probably aiming for another world record, but she did. She didn't get a world record, but it was still a very, very special race to win that and get an OR along the way. She had a year to remember, and I think that for me, she's probably one of my favorite athletes of all time, Faith Kipyegon. She's a really fascinating human being, and I was happy to see that in the 5,000 meters and 10,000 meters, she got reinstated after the initial confusion, also about her overhead disqualification. She was so graceful about it. You remember, she just took it very calmly. So, look, she's one woman and one athlete that deserves everything that she's getting. Faith Kipyegon. She's worked really hard for it, and she is a star and a flag bearer for the African continent, not just for Kenya. Another event, and I don't want to stress too much on this, is Lesile Tubogo. We spoke about him earlier on in the 200 meters, but also, since we're not talking about favorite moments, for me, I think that 400 meters as well was very special. The 4x4, I mean, it was very special to see him claim silver just behind America. And that, anchor race that he ran with Rai Benjamin of the USA, it was one of the most, for me, tactical races or anchor legs of all time. And I don't think that if it was any other athlete that had run that particular anchor leg for the USA, they would have won. I think that for sure, Leslie Tubugo would have beaten them. But Rai Benjamin came in with a lot of experience and somehow still managed to make it. But to see Leslie Tubugo go back home with 2 medals, a gold and a silver for his country, no surprise the way they received him. And I'm sure you saw the images after. It was like almost a kingly ride. And just a few weeks later, he was back doing it all over again in the Diamond League races. So he had quite the year, as you also pointed out a little earlier in the conversation.
That was crazy, because in the pre-event press conference in Lausanne, he said he hadn't been training for a while because he'd gone back home for the celebrations. And then he just, had another fantastic race. So he really had a fantastic year. And he's also an athlete I like very much. And yes, he was very proud of the relay.
Absolutely. Because I mean, that's it. It's one thing to win alone, right? But it feels so much more when you win together. So I think you can understand why the relay race was also meant so much more to him. And we saw him in the Rome Diamond League when he won the 100 meters. He said since Paris, he hadn't trained in the 100 meters, and he just shows up with a win. It's unbelievable what this kid does, Another really good moment for me from the Paris Olympic Games of 2024 was Annette Eneka of the USA. I mentioned her also because of the unique story of how she ended up competing for the USA, becoming the first woman ever to win a hammer throw medal for the USA. And that medal could have gone to Nigeria, Anna, couldn't it? Because she had that chance in 2020 to compete for Nigeria. She was in Tokyo, and then that administrative era that led to all of Nigeria's athletes getting kicked out meant that she didn't even get to compete for the country. So she went through the whole nationality switch thing. 4 years later, she was back competing for the USA and made history for them. Just yet another example of Africa or an African country letting down some of their athletes. And Nigeria's loss is, of course, the USA's game. And that year in Tokyo 2020, she went in there having set the African record in the helmet throw. She had a real chance back then as well. But then she didn't compete. And now, 4 years later, she's back competing and, of course, medaling for the USA. So really a bit of a mixed feeling as far as that story is concerned, because that could have been a medal for Africa for sure. Mundo Duplantis, not sure I want to dwell on it, spoke about his dominance now. I think by far he's probably now at this moment or at any moment in time, probably the greatest pole vaulter of all time. And he's still really young, and to see what he's doing and to see the way he's doing it and increasing his world record by centimeter every time. That's really smart. It's one thing that generates a lot of conversation all the time. It's like, why does he keep doing that? Is there some sort of bonuses, some money involved every time he breaks the record? So because people are always like, why doesn't he just increase it by a few more centimeters? But he's another super. He's a real showman, and I say this, Anna, all the time. Like, from what we learned in all our interactions with you, you keep talking about it. That is one of the things that we need to do. We need to create superstars in our sport, and I think Mundo is one of those real superstars in the sport. It takes people like that to draw even a non-partisan crowd into the field of athletics. And I'm really happy to see a young Swede doing what he's doing. He's an incredible talent. He got married over the summer, I believe. So it was double joy for him, right after the Olympic Games and all of that. So incredible stuff. Akani Simbini as well. Another really good moment for me, not because he won a gold medal or anything, but to see him medal for the first time at the Olympic Games in his career, given how consistent he's been, how much of an African flag bearer he's been, to do that with that South Africa 4x100 meter relay team was a real moment of pleasure, a real moment of pride. He shed tears after that because you could just see how much it meant to him to anchor that team to a podium place. That was unbelievable. I'm happy for Simbine. Simbine is one of those athletes, and you know this. He is in every top 100-meter final since probably 2016, but he never wins. He never medals, he never podiums. So to see that he finally got the podium, and look at the crazy 100-meter race that we got in Paris. He ran that race in a different final. He probably medals, but he does that and he doesn't medal. So it was disappointing to see. But to see the redemption in the 4x100 meter relay for him, it meant so much more to him personally than it probably did to 18-year-old 18-year-old Azala or any of the other members of that 4x100 meter relay thing. And then Muzala Samukanga, of course, also making history in the 400 meter final. Another record-breaking 400 meter final. His country's third ever medal at the Olympic Games. And he had a long year. I commentated on him. He was at the African Games in March. He didn't even medal. He didn't win, I beg your pardon, in the African Games at 400 meters. And that was held in March. And exactly 4 months later, he's medaling at the global stage at the Olympic Games. What a crazy year he's had himself, and I'm quite happy for him. So lots of moments to pick up from 2024, but for me, I think these ones really stand out personally.
No, really, those were all great, great moments. I mean, everybody knows I have a very soft spot for Akani, so I was thrilled because he's been so consistent, as you said, over the year. Several times he was in fourth or fifth and didn't quite make it. So that he finally got that medal, it was just brilliant. Yeah. And Muzala Samukonga, I mean, you remember back in 22 in the Mauritius African Championships, he upset favorite Maya Pondori, and that was the first time most of us heard about or noticed Samukonga. So it's really good to see that he's brought it to the next level.
Yeah,
Great.
the Mauritius Championship was very chaotic. Wasn't the weather conditions were so bad? It was raining all the time. It was wet the whole time. But yeah, so that comes with upsets every now and then.
Yeah. Thank you, Fentuo. So let's look now at under 20 and under 18 athletes, because athletes in that age group registered some really great performances over the fortnight. So starting with the under 20s, with the men, over 60 meters. These marks are all indoor. 6:57 for Caleb Joshua of Nigeria, another very talented Nigerian sprinter, moves to number equal sixth in the under 20 all-time list. Now, Ajani Dwyer, World Athletics doesn't have his performances, but Tilastopaya does. World Athletics, for some US athletes, they don't have dates of birth. Tilastopaya gives it as 18 May 2006. So Ajani Dwyer, he ran first 6:59 in State College. I've a bit of a mess up there, which was number 13 of equal 13 on the under 20 all-time list. And then he improved to 6:57, which is number equal 6 on the under 20 all-time list. So great performances by young Ajani Dwyer. 1,500 meters, we've already mentioned Cameron Myers in passing, his split of 3:37.89. Moves him to number 10 in the under 20 all-time list. A little slower, but also a very good mark, number 17 at the time on the under 20 all-time list, Norway's Håkon Moeberg with 3:39.21. And in the mile, of course, Cameron Myers set a world under 20 record in New York City. Among the women, 300 meters. Now that's not an Olympic distance, but very good mark by the USA's Elise Cooper with 36.96. She moves to number 14 on the under 20 all-time list and number 7 indoors. 3,000 meters we already saw. Marta Almayo set an under 18 world best, and she also moved to number 7 on the under 20 all-time list on the 3,000 meters in Astana. And behind her, Shito Gumi moves to number 8 on the under 20 all-time list. Let's move now to under 18 athletes. Among the men, now this is a mark which is a little bit complicated. So Divine Iheme was already in the previous show, over 500 meters, 1:00:49 by Andrew Salvadon. Again, World Athletics does not have his date of birth, and they don't include this in the under 18 or under 20 lists. But US outlets say he is 17 years old, and that mark would therefore make him number 1 in the under 18 all-time list and number 2 in the under 20 all-time list. Of course, 500 meters is not a distance that is run that often. 60-meter hurdles, the 91.4 centimeters height. France has a great tradition in the hurdles, of course, and their last jewel is Maëlle Befassou-Lanurien, who clocked 7:68 on 19 January in Nantes and moves to equal 6th on the under 18 all-time list. And in the under 18 heptathlon, Estonia's Jan Jonas Polak totaled 5,430 points to move to number 14 in the under 18 all-time list. Among the women, 60 meters, we mentioned Kelly Douala. So 6:23 moves her to number 3 in the all-time list. And 6:27 was then number 8. And in between, Lisa Ray of Trinidad ran 7:26 to move to number 7 in the under 18 all-time list. And again, Lisa Ray on the 200 meters, she clocked 23:39, which is number 11 equal on the under 18 all-time list. And here's another athlete from Africa, Choma Nwachukwu, on the 400 meters, clocked 53:32 to move to number 14 in the under 18 short track all-time list. An athlete from Poland, also with a very good result in the 1,000 meters short track, Oksana Pestka, with 2:47.21, moves to number 14 equal on the under 20 all-time lists overall, and the number 7 mark in short track events. Marta Alemayo, of course, on 3,000 meters steeplechase, we've already discussed. And on the 60-meter hurdles, 76.2 centimeters, there's a very good result by Italy's Alessia Succo, who with 8.25 moves to equal 7 in the under 18 all-time list. Now, Fentuo, talking about amazing youngsters, what under 20 or under 18 athletes impressed you the most in 2024? One man and one woman.
Yes, for me, I think that man will be Bayanda Wazala, the South African teenage sensation, sprint double at the under-20 championships, adding to an Olympic silver medal. I don't know what you were doing at the age of 16 or at the age of 18 when you were a teenager, but I certainly wasn't winning Olympic medals.
No.
So that is a very special year he had with his very unique running style and the wobbling arms here and there. He's a superstar. I remember when he went back home after the Olympic Games, he was a star in the school because he had to go straight back to school. And he was almost like every corner he passed, every student wanted to be his friend. Then he shows up in Lima and then gets a double in both the 100 meters and the 200 meters. So that was a very special year that he had in 2024. Very few teenage athletes have had that sort of year. Maybe Gout a little bit. I'll talk about him in the next question. The women that impressed for me is Alana Reid, another teenage sensation. You remember Alana Reid from the 2022 Under 20 championships, and in Cali, where she got a bronze medal, I believe, in the 200 meters, and she turned that into gold in the 100 in Lima just 2 years later. And she's one of those athletes that will come under enormous pressure, mostly because she turned a professional at the age of 18, moved out of Jamaica, moved to Florida, training with Dennis Mitchell and Sha'Carri Richardson, Tanisha Terry in that camp. So it was good to see her delivering the goods, because in a couple of years, she's going to be on the spotlight a lot, because she reminds a lot of Jamaicans, obviously, about a lot of the previous female spring superstars that they've had. And I think that she had a really good year last year. And so expectations would be very high for sure, because you look at what she did at the age of 16, breaking records so that Veronica Campbell-Brown had set several years prior. She showed enormous potential. So last year, she showed a lot of us that she could deliver in the big stage, and that under 20 gold was definitely a standout result for her, and I'm very happy for her. So for me, that also stands out.
Exactly, and she's got a lot of pressure because the older generation of Jamaican ladies who had dominated for years, they had different issues this year. So a lot of people are looking at Alana to bring medals back to Jamaica. Mm-mm. So, Fentuo, finally, let's continue just for the very last time on favorite athletes of 2024. Who were yours?
Leslie Tobago, first name out of my mouth. Listen, Anna, I don't know, man. It's really hard to choose another person, isn't it? I mean, it's the whole story of how. Look, it's not easy for anyone to overcome adversity and turn it into a triumph the way Tobago did it last year. And people forget that Tobago is still very young. He's only, what, 21, I believe? He is still really young, like really young. And to do that with the kind of pressure that he's being on, to win the way he did, perform the way he did at the Olympic Games, and then, of course, in the Diamond League races, he had, listen, he was that was in Greek word, his annus mirabilis. He was fantastic, and I really am very happy that it all came together for him. As for me, he was rightfully named the World Athlete of the Year. He had there was no one close to Letsile Tobago in the year 2024. So for me, I would definitely choose him 1,000 times over. My personal favorite athlete of the year 2024. Maybe I'm a little too fascinated, but it's just what it is, Anna. It's just what it is.
These things are always subjective, so you're entitled
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you.
to vote 1,000 times. Sorry for Letsile.
Yes, 1,000 times over.
And Fentuo, what athletes and events will you be most looking forward to in 2025?
Listen, I'm going to say, I think towards the end of the year, we all saw the performances from a certain lanky Australian teenager with a very unique name, Gout. He set the Australian school championships alight, like he set it on fire. He ran times that professional athletes in the whole of Oceania had never done. In the 200 meters, 20.04. It's the record. It's an area record for Oceania in the 200 meters. He is 16, Anna. 16. So this year, I'm very, and he's running records that even Usain Bolt didn't run at that particular age. So I'm very curious to see whether this was just like a one-off thing, or this is someone that is worth the hype, and at the hype right now is very deserved. So I'm looking forward to see what 2025 presents. And there's a World Under 20 Championships that will be happening in Oregon, I believe. Am I right? So hopefully he will be there. He's running times that are good enough to qualify for World Championships. I want to see what he will be in Tokyo. So I'm certainly looking forward to see so much more from him this particular year. Another event that I'm looking forward to is, or at least that I really want to see, is to see how Kishen Thompson shapes out his season. He started the season well by winning the 60 meters in Astana as the World Indoor Champion. He's running a debut indoor season. He had a year to remember last year, but then it didn't end the way he would have liked by missing out just on the 100-meter title. But he's an athlete that doesn't run much and doesn't talk much. But this year, a lot of talking has to be done on the track, as he often likes to do. And we will see a lot of that rivalry shaping up again between him and the Americans, because it's literally now a one-man show versus the Americans. Maybe Oblique Seville will come into a man of his own this year as well, leading to the to the World Championships in Tokyo somewhere in September. It's a long season, and I'm quite looking forward to seeing how the spring shape up. Also, I want to see what kind of comeback story that the Jamaican women sprinters, especially, will also come through it. You remember in Paris, it was a disaster of a campaign for them. There was no Jamaican women in the final of the women's 100 meters. They didn't podium for the first time in God knows how long, maybe probably since 2004, that it didn't have a Jamaican in the podium in 100 meters in the Olympic Games. So it's a comeback season for them as well. So quite a lot to look forward to in 2025.
Definitely. Thank you, Fentuo. So let's move now to some cool athletics news. And I'd like to highlight some news that I find really cool and extend heartfelt congratulations to several athletes. Now, first, we've been talking about great results by under 20 and under 18 athletes. But the great thing about our sport is that even older athletes can achieve amazing performances. And one such is Belgium's Hilde Dozogne, who, aged 55, achieved an outstanding feat, completing a full marathon every single day of 2024. She ran 366 marathons in total. Wow. On the last day, 31 December, she had invited the public to join her for one lap of 5K or more, as they wished. And among those showing their support was Olympic and World Championship multi-medalist, Belgium's Bashir Abdi. Hilde, who ran her first marathon 12 years ago, aged 43, achieved her challenge juggling work in the morning, rest at midday, and running in the afternoon between 2 and 6. And in the process, she raised 65,000 euros for research for breast cancer. Totally amazing lady. And to think that women were considered too fragile for the marathon, which was only included in the Olympic Games program 40 years ago in Los Angeles. Amazing. Fentuo, pretty astonishing, don't you think?
That is a fascinating story. Every single day of the year. I couldn't do a marathon once every 5 years. That's a fascinating story. So top plaudits to her. That's a really amazing story. That is superb. That's wonderful. So listen, I'm lost for words. Every single day.
Every single day. And the weather in Belgium is not exactly the most, wonderful
Friendly.
over the winter. So rain or shine, every single day she'd go out and run a marathon.
That is so unbelievable. Juggling work, juggling.
Yes.
I mean, that is that is mad. Wow, these are the stories that we need to tell a bit more. That's fascinating. And then she's doing a lot of charity work while doing it. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's absolutely great. Now, the other little item of news that I wanted to highlight is U.S. Sprinter Gabby Thomas. Now, of course, she's the Olympic 200-meter champion and a multiple medalist at the World Championships and Olympics. But today is not about her achievements on the track, but about recognition beyond the sport. As Gabby and U.S. basketball star Angela Reese shared the cover of the winter 2025 edition of Vogue. So that was pretty cool. Fentuo, don't you think cool to see stars of our sport recognized outside the stadium, especially in the US, where, let's face it, we all know athletics is not terribly popular?
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. So this is really good to see. And it was, I mean, it was obvious. We could see this coming, couldn't we? Because right after the Olympic Games, she deserves this whole spotlight because she was the only American sprinter or American athlete at the Olympic Games to get 3 gold medals. So
Yes,
when she went back home, she was on every television show, and so she's definitely had the spotlight that she deserves, the spotlight that deservedly Olympic triple gold medals should bring you. And I'm glad that the Americans are rightfully recognizing that. And it doesn't hurt that she's also really beautiful and really smart because she has a
absolutely.
Harvard degree, and
Yeah.
she's been in the last week she's been arguing with people on Twitter about whether or not she earned her Harvard degree. And I find it really ridiculous that people in this day and age would be so quick to just knock down the achievements of people or think some people were just handed something because of what exactly I don't know. So that's just ridiculous. But it's really good to see that and I think that came on the back of this Vogue thing because then people started
Yeah.
to ask too many questions. You know how the internet is, people can be so negative. But nonetheless, as my communication professor used to say, that even negative publicity is good publicity. So it's really good to see she's in the conversation, and she's being recognized a lot. And it adds to all the other things that are happening to our sport with the Netflix shows here and there. So
Mhm.
athletics, it's really at a time where it's transcending just the core fan base of the sport into mainstream, and that's what we need to take the sport to the
Yes.
next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gabi could be, I mean, Yelena Isinbayeva, she had it all. She was immensely successful, as a pole vaulter. She was very beautiful lady. She was fun. And so she was a marketing man's dream. And Gabi is similar,
Yeah.
plus she has these, amazing brain. She really is incredibly, incredibly accomplished. And she's also somebody who dedicates a lot of her time to charity work. So she's the full package, just a lovely, lovely lady and, a mega star. So I hope that, yeah, she does get a lot of attention more and more because she totally deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that that she just needs to do, obviously, is that sometimes this can be a big distraction. So,
Yeah.
and sometimes people tend to forget that the very reason and the only reason you're in the spotlight is because of your performances on the track. So, if you
Yes.
take your mind off of what's happening on the track and you stop winning, that spotlight also tends to go away. So, I hope that she can get that balance right.
I think so. She looks like somebody who's pretty solid. So
Yeah, she
I
looks
think
like
she
she
should
just looks
juggle
like
that.
one of those people that has a lot of things figured out, right?
Yes.
She just looks like she has it figured out.
Yeah. 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 Mm-mm. So let's look now at upcoming events as we reach the end of our show. So the second leg of the World Indoor Tour is taking place tomorrow, 29 January in Belgrade. Then there's several silver elite indoor track in Miramas. That's a world combined events tour. That's in France. And the series of meets focused on the pole vault also continues in France with a World Indoor Tour Silver Perche Extrême in Caen over 2 days, 31st January and 1st of February. 1st of February is also the Ras Al Khaimah Half Marathon. 1st and 2nd of February, there's a World Combined Events tour meeting in Tallinn, Estonia. On the 2nd, now World Indoor Tour gold level meets are going to be coming fast and thick. New Balance Indoor Grand Prix on February 2nd. On the 3rd of February, a silver level meeting de l'Eure. 2nd of February, World Cross Country Tour Gold, the Cross Internacional Amendoeiras en Flor, the almond blossom in Albufeira. 4th of February, Czech Indoor Gala, World Indoor Tour Gold in Ostrava. 5 of February, Beskid Bar in Trinec in Czech Republic, World Indoor Tour Silver. On the 7th, Init Indoor Meet in Karlsruhe, World Indoor Tour Gold, and the following day, the Millrose Games in New York. Then there's a series of World Indoor Tour Silver meets, Metz Moselle on the 8th, Orlen Cup in Łódź, Poland, Hustopece Skakani in Czech Republic, and the Paris Indoor Meet, all on the 8th of February, as well as the Kenya Cross Country Championships in Nairobi. On February 9, ISTAF Indoor in Düsseldorf, Germany, that's a silver level. And on the same day, Nordic Indoor Championships in Espoo, Finland. 13th of February, this has been now for 5 years the best meeting among the World Indoor Tour, the meeting Hauts-de-France Pas-de-Calais in Liévin, and we'll be there. So I'll be posting interviews from the athletes in Liévin on the 13th of February. 15th of February, Balkan Indoor Championships in Belgrade. Same day, meeting Andorre de Lyon World Indoor Tour Silver. And on the 16th of February, Orlen Copernicus Cup in Toruń, Poland. That's a gold level meet. 16th of February, also combined events, Copernicus Cup in the same, taking place at the same time. 18 February, Bansko Bystrica Jachta in Slovak Republic, indoor silver. And the following day, I'm not going to pretend that I know how to pronounce this, in another indoor silver meet in Nevizi in Czech Republic. National Indoor Championships between 21 and 23 February, US Indoor Championships on 22-23, and South American Indoor Championships also on 22-23 February. So that's going to be a very intense weekend at national and continental level. On 23 February, also Guadalajara Marathon in Mexico and Meishang Half Marathon in China, as well as the second leg of the World Cross Country Tour in Kenya, the Sirikwa Classic in Eldoret. 28th February, the last event of the World Indoor Tour in Madrid, and 28 February and 1st of March, the All-Star Perche in Clermont-Ferrand, France. Woo! So lots of events still to look at and to look forward to. So we're now at the end of our show, and it was really great having Fentuo with us.
Yes. Anna, this has been an absolute pleasure. I have had enormous fun. It's good to talk athletics again. It seemed like we have been off of it for a while over Christmas. So I'm really happy to be on the show. It's been a long time in the making, and I've had an absolute ball of a time. Great laughter, great memories. Thank you so much for having me and for doing this, because you continue to provide a platform for not just journalists, but athletes around the world. And you've been doing this for a really long time. And you can, the way you still find motivation to do this, it's absolutely breathtaking. It's exemplary. And we are very grateful for you, Anna, for all the opportunities and all the paths that you've opened for young athletes, for young journalists, and for your continuous investment in this sport. You are an icon. We appreciate you. We love you. And we will continue to make you proud. And we will continue to carry the torch and make sure that the sport of track and field continues to grow in leaps and bounds. And we truly, truly appreciate I appreciate you and everything that you've done for all of us. And I say this for so many more athletes, so many more young journalists that were provided a platform by you when you didn't even have to. You would, bend over and do a lot of things just to make sure that people got enormous comfort. I'll never forget the World Championship in 2019. I had the opportunity, accreditation to cover it, but the company I worked for was not ready to do anything beyond just buying a ticket. They didn't. So I reached out to you, and you're like, "No problem, just come over. We'll try and get you accommodation." I come over and I get accommodation, and another person comes, and I share with the person, and then So listen, Anna, you have done so much for all of us, and if you don't get told enough, this is another reminder. This is another one, another opportunity for me to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for everything that you've done for us.
Thank you so much, Fentuo. Really, I wasn't expecting this, and it's just really cool. Yeah, I just always loved what I did, be it talking about athletics or working, on media development projects, because there's so much talent out there who just need an opportunity. And then you see how, people who have taken part in these projects, how they've then blossomed. All they needed was an opportunity. So I'm really happy that I was able to, do a little bit of that. That was really, that's one of the things I enjoyed the most of my years at the IAAF.
Definitely, and your class of 2019 is a very special class because look, we've got all of them all over the place now. You got Daring is doing really well in Uganda. Hailey is doing very well in Ethiopia. Yes. You've got the Nigerian lady. What is she called? With the Meeting of Champions, she's doing amazing.
She's great. Yes.
Exactly, she's doing amazing. Then you've got myself. So that was a very special class. We'll keep going for sure. We will definitely keep going.
Great. Thank you so much, Fentuo. It was really a huge pleasure having you finally on the show.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I'm so happy to have been on it. Thank you for inviting me over. And we have a long season ahead, Anna. A long season.
Oh, we do. We do. So hopefully we'll meet again this year. Fingers crossed.
That's what I hope. Fingers crossed. How do they do the fingers crossed? I can't. Oh, it's the. Yeah, there it is. There it is. There it is. There it is. Thank you. I'm looking forward to meeting you again somewhere along the line this year.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And thank you all for watching. And as I said, we'll be posting interviews from Liévin on the 13th of February. And just before that, see you in 2 weeks on Love Athletics to look together at the highlights, comments, and analysis of what's been happening in our beloved sport over the past fortnight. Thank you. Ciao. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.